So, I was told to say in nice words, please come and sit down and listen to our great fireside chat. Join us for a great discussion. Shall we start? We start, huh? All right. So, usually I would say working on a Monday is not by far the greatest thing, right? But I think the rules and cons are a bit different. I have a great guest here next to me, Maximilian Schöngen, Global Creative Lead at Mediaplus Group. We'll come to that in a second. And we have a great crowd who is not yet fully drunk. So I think we can kick this off, right? Max, so Global Creative Lead at a media agency. Tell us, how is that possible? I thought they're all math man, but apparently also creative.
Yeah, they're all madmen. Now, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for listening to me. And also in advance, it's a Monday, so thank you very much for not asking too many tough questions at the end of this. No, I'm joking. You can ask me anything. So maybe a little bit of background, because some say I do have quite an odd profile for our industry. So I graduated first in statistics, quite odd, to have a bachelor in statistics and then one in marketing management and then master in international business with a focus on strategic management, to then realize at that time I'm never going to fit in with a management consultancy firm. So I moved to the north of Germany and was working as a waiter for like 4 months, trying to figure out what to do with my life. And then I started my career in advertising, first as a suit, then as a strategist, then as a, oh, this gets very loud now, then as a creative. And then when I started at Service Plan in the innovation team, I sort of became a little bit of all of that. And then I worked 6.5 years for the creative board of the Service Plan group. And then 2 years ago, I changed to the
dark side.
To the dark side, yeah. So, very long story to answer your question. What is my job at Mediaplus is to make media more creative. That's the what, let's say. But maybe the how is a little bit more important and also maybe more interesting for today. So the how is twofolded. We do it from within Mediaplus, but we also do it together. So for within, when I started 2 years ago, we started to establish and build up and then step by step roll out creative media operations into various countries. So as of now, we have 52 people across 13 markets who live and breathe creative media, and they generate creative media ideas for our clients. However, the second route is together. And that sounds very simple, but in reality, it's actually quite hard to work together. So that's, being the glue and the sticky stuff between different disciplines. And maybe to give you a very specific example, so connecting a data analyst with a copywriter to really craft the most impactful script. But then not stop there, but we have a tool at Mediaplus called Emotion Engine. And basically you can feed it TVCs, but you can also feed it scripts. So we then feed scripts to the Emotion Engine to analyze whether there's room for still optimizing that script before it's even executed. Fundamentally, I think it's taking the two forces and the power of media to amplify a creative idea and tell a compelling stories across multiple touchpoints.
So basically you're making the creative guy and the data guy have children that are very successful then in the world, which is great. Because, I don't know, I used to work in a media agency a lifetime ago. And when I did that, it was basically, there was a big idea by a fancy creative agency. And then it was passed down. And at the end of the food chain, the media guys were like, oh, no, you have to execute it. Is that changing now? Like, how do you see that?
Well, it is changing. Maybe before we go into this, because I brought you guys one case that really sums up how we can use a very good creative idea and amplify it across multiple touch points to really have some impact and drive change. And maybe I can play this because I got given a little ticker. Let's see if this works. It doesn't. I'll try again.
The opioid crisis isn't even close to coming to an end.
Every 6 minutes, someone dies from an overdose.
People have simply been prescribed something that kills them.
Addiction is just too strong.
I try to quit so many times, but then you have a pill in your hand and it's just...
855 How to Quit is a helpline that turns the object of addiction into a way out by using the mandatory imprint codes on opioid pills as phone extensions to connect those who struggle with those who manage to quit that very same pill.
Hi, my name is Brian, and I quit using Oxycontin.
Connected through the pills,
I know what you're going through.
the callers heard stories from real survivors.
Model. I had a steady job, a husband, and a doctor.
3601.
How they got addicted,
Escaped is really everyone I knew had opioids in them. Yeah, OP. They welcomed me.
and
with
how they
open
quit.
arms. 12-step program saved my life. I want to let you
Followed by live advice from experts.
treatment options near you are either the clinic.
The helpline was promoted through a nationwide integrated media campaign with out-of-home and print ads placed in relevant environments, next to pharmacies and hotspots, and based on regional prescription data of pills. A film brought it to TV. A website contained all stories, more information and ways to participate, like sharing your own story. On social media, prominent survivors promoted
You'll see these billboards popping up. You got to check it out.
and even joined the helpline.
Look, there I am.
The campaign reached millions, helping thousands to take the first step to quit.
No one thought of this before.
Saving lives every day.
People out there, they need to call. It can save thousands and thousands of lives.
If I didn't have somebody helping me, I wouldn't be sitting here today. It's that simple.
855 How to Quit, helping America quit opioids, pill by pill.
Hello. So I think what this shows is, I personally think it's a very, very brilliant creative idea. But a creative idea, if it doesn't reach the people who are very in need of that specific idea, it's just an idea. And we need media to amplify creative ideas in order to reach the people, in order to drive change and to have an impact. Sorry, back to your question.
Getting those together, the creative guys, the media ladies, all of them in one room. I mean, at the end of the day, AI is not yet fulfilling all of our jobs, right? So I guess there's also frictions, there's a bit of a difficulty getting everybody together and working on a great case like this together, right?
Yeah, so I mean, this fireside chat is called Making Media Sexy. And that's not entirely true, because it's actually a lie, because media already is sexy and media already is a creative discipline. So it's not about making media sexy, it's more about convincing, persuading, showing, inspiring creatives that they should work with us and vice versa. I think we have to just... Back in the days, we were very close, and then we sort of drifted apart. It's probably a money issue at some back in the days, but I think
Conflicting business models or something like that.
yeah. But I think we have to get closer together.
How do you ensure that, like, on the agency side? So you're part of Service Plan, right? What do you do different to make sure that creativity in media, creative and media, is working together hand in hand? How do you make that happen for a client?
So I think in general, to bring creative people and media people together is in theory quite easy, because media agencies have something to offer that every creative or every good creative is not desperate for but wants, and that's impact. And we as media people can provide that impact, and I think that's a good way to convince people to work together. At the Service Plan Group, let's say, like in 99% of the cases, I'm a bottom-up guy. So like I think everything should go from bottom up. But I think this is something which has to be top-down or start top-down. At Service Plan, we have a mantra or philosophy, let's call it. It's called Über Creative or Über Creativity. And sometimes it gets confused. It's not that we're more creative than others. Nobody on its own can be uber creative. It is when everybody is as creative as they can, and then they come together. And then this is when we have a definition. It's a higher form of innovation, which happens when different talents from different disciplines and different backgrounds and different cultures collaborate and interplay. And I think this is something that on group level is really embraced and lived so that it can be adapted. It is a matter of being a role model and living and doing that so that everybody can slowly adapt it. But not everything is gold that shines. So that's the theory. And also we're in the process of living this. But I think we're doing already quite a good job in doing that.
So let's say you're uber creative on your side, agency side. You get all the people together that need to work together to do a great campaign. What client do you need? What's the interface that you need on the client side to make that happen? Because my experience is also clients can be very complicated in the way they're set up. Different pillars, different silos. So if you get everybody together on your side, how do you make sure that the client, or what does the client need to bring to leverage that uber creativity?
So I think mainly two things. The first thing is the willingness to innovate, the willingness to be a little bold, be a little audacious, do things a little differently. But most importantly, what a client needs to bring to the people, that's the pointer, to the table is people. They need to bring people to the table. So from the very beginning, they need to be creatives and media guys and strategy and PR and et cetera, but at the very beginning. Sometimes, or back in the days, it was that media is the last person in the room to know what's going to happen. And that fundamentally needs to change. Because, usually a big idea, we had this big idea you were talking about, and then it gets adapted to different channels, etc. So media comes second. But sometimes it can be the other way around. Sometimes it can be that a big idea can be based on media, can be based on audience insight or touchpoint knowledge. I have a second case. I don't know how I wanted to save it for later, but I can play it right now. Because that's a wonderful example for we have a media insight, and on the basis of that, we build a big idea.
Yeah, let's show it now.
Okay.
Go for it.
Dip, dip, dip. Same, I need to get out, right?
Arab Emirates, an emerging EV market, where the primary source of charge is through public charging stations. And the first thing prospective buyers do before making the switch is look for charging stations near them. And this is what they see. Over 300 stations scattered across the city, listed with pictures crowdsourced by visitors. As the last ones to hit the market, we saw this as a chance to shit up. BMW presents the iJack, turning Google Maps into a virtual showroom. To launch our electric range, we took our shiny new beamers and photobombed every EV charging station in broad daylight. That's right. Each and every one of them. So when someone searched for the nearest charging stations, they were tempted by a BMW. Audi owners, they saw a BMW. Mercedes and Porsche, also a BMW. From every angle, including 360 views of the interiors, with QR codes intercepting every search with a chance to test drive our cars. We tried to keep it low-key, but then the region's leading motoring channel took notice.
بطلع على الثلاث صور لقيتهم كلهم بي ام دبليو. ثانية ضغطت على الثانية طلعوا لي كمان صور بي ام دبليو.
Which got everybody else talking.
So I found something interesting. In every charging station that I searched for on Google Maps, I found a BMW in it.
Every time I'm open a charging station on the... I can't believe they have all these BMWs at the charging stations.
Grabbing millions of views on Google Maps. Test drives went through the roof. 2 out of 5 new bookings could be traced back to our virtual showrooms. And $2.2 million in earned media. While others were spending millions on all this, we literally did it for almost zero. BMW iJack.
I think that's a really great case, except you should spend millions with us and then do this on top.
Absolutely. But what I mean, why I love this case so much is because it's a perfect example for there wasn't a big idea. There was a media consumption insight and a consumer insight plus touchpoint knowledge, and this was the basis to to come up with a great creative idea with,
Do
in
you
the future,
remember
a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember who came up with this? Like, who had the insight? Like, where did it came from?
From our Middle East office. His name was Karim. And
the media agency.
Yeah,
stuff.
the insight came from the media agency,
Nice.
and the creative work was done by our service plan office over there.
So, we're switching a little bit to the client side, right? If I look from the media perspective to the clients, what I see at the moment is, and that's also one reason we're doing this here, we see a lot of centralization in decision making, in strategy building, in executing media campaigns. If you try to put your creative hat on, which you had for a long time, how is that on the creative sides, the agency sides, the client side? Is there also a centralization trend?
Well, I think there's a big trend, like you say, in centralizing things in general. For example, teams, decision making, processes, also budgets, to be honest. But I think I don't necessarily think it's true that there's a trend in centralizing strategies. In contrary, I actually have the impression that we have an increase in local strategies. So local strategies become more and more important, depending on the area, but also on the pop culture you sometimes want to tap into. And I think if local strategies becomes more important, also local media strategies become more important, the creative has to follow. Because otherwise, I mean, you need local strategies to perfectly line up with the bigger picture. And to ensure brand consistency across different markets, creative has to follow the direction media is heading.
So building one framework and then trying to leverage the local or the national strategic directions that follow this global framework? Is that something?
Yeah, I mean, in the very beginning, you were talking about what if we change this process around. And I think here it's sort of similar. If you know in advance what sort of touch points and channels you're trying to work, something can be specifically designed for that respective touch point. So, you know, if everything is centralized, you have a lot of adaptation. And adaptation is the silent killer of impact, if you ask me. So I think because adaptation always is a compromise. You know, you adapt something to something so that something is going to get missed. But if you have the local strategies up front and you know who you're going to talk to, when you're going to talk to these people, and in which format and in which channel you're going to talk to them, that big idea can be based and that big strategy can be based upon the different local insights. And that will drive impact, and that will be way more effective and efficient in the future.
So you're trying to find the common denominator between the different local strategies and then put basically an umbrella over it.
Yeah, if you will, that's the way we should do it. Obviously, if you find a common denominator, then it's a compromise
insight.
against.
Well, it can be common insight. It can be a consumer touch point. I mean, this case is scalable across many countries, I would guess, and you did it probably across many countries.
Not yet,
because the consumer insight is the common denominator, right? Probably people in France that look for a charging station behave the same way than in the Middle East, right?
Yeah, that's true. But you know, when a case is done and comes over, usually
and the show reel is shown. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you're completely right. Like this specific touch point works in every country, and if that is the case, then we can scale it, obviously. But not always, not all the time. There's like everything works in every market, and you have to be listening to the market specific insights and to the market specific resources you have as well.
Yeah, I think that's something media people are obsessed about, measuring, listening to consumers, understanding the impact of everything, of every little GRP, 0.5 GRPs that we invested somewhere. What is it on the creative side and creative media? How do you try to grasp the impact of what you're doing creatively versus standard, let's say, right? Is there some secret formula you came up with to measure it?
No, there's no secret formula. Like it needs to have the certain component. It needs to have a good creative idea. It needs to be addressed at the right time and distributed to the right people and the right audience in the right format. And you're right. Like usually the creative plays a very big role in the level of impact a campaign or an idea or project can have. But
we saw that in econometric modelings. I don't know who ever did one of those. Very expensive, but pretty cool. We did them 10 years ago already. They were even more expensive. But in the econometric modelings, the creative always came out as one of the biggest factors for the effectiveness of the campaign.
Yeah, I also read that it's up to 70% of the actual impact. However, it's a multiplication issue. So if you have the best creative asset in the world, but it's creative times the right audience, times the right moment, times the right format. And if one of these is zero, so is your impact. So you can have the best creative asset in the world. If it doesn't reach anybody, it's not going to have an impact. So I think that brings me back to my very start. I think we have to work together. And if this is something that you can take out of this, or generally out of Cannes, I think this is something that's the only direction that's fruitful in the future, is if we get closer, if we work together, if you also a little bit being self-reflective. Like sometimes there are still these stereotypes happening, even though nobody admits it, but creative people have a certain stereotype of media guys and vice versa. And I think we just have to be a little bit not protective, but we have to be careful with our own egos that are built up over time. And don't think that
very
we're the
easy
smartest woman
to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's important. Like nothing great is ever done by a single person, ever. It's like if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you're probably not, or you need to change the room. Be still open to be surprised and be inspired by other opinions. And I think that's the most important part of working together, because only then we can do great things, and only then we can drive change together.
So you would say that there's a consistent trend towards media and creative moving closer together, both on agency as well as on client side, again? Like it was in the beginning.
It's not going as fast as I would like it to, but I think the direction is the right one. So I think we're working a lot more closer together, and I think that's also an industry trend, nothing that's just happening in our group. I think since we're independent and not stock listed, we can do a couple of decisions that make the process maybe slightly faster than in big networks, for example. But I think the entire industry is going and heading towards that. And I think it's a good development, it's a good direction. Because all of these, whatever jury you're in Cannes, like all case films always end with numbers. They all end with results. And if you don't
100
have
million
results,
people reached,
yeah, and
earned media.
And 6 billion people, it's like the numbers, they inflate over time, I think. Like if you look back.
Like everything else, it inflates, it needs to be bigger. Probably in 10 years you will have 1 billion people reached in earned media.
No, but I think it's very important. At the end of the day, if we have the greatest idea in the world, but we don't reach anybody, we don't change something, we don't drive forward anything in the industry, why do it in the first place?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the goal is impact, creating impact for the client, reaching consumers, and that gets harder and harder. We didn't even touch the topic of media fragmentation and how to reach consumers, and that's why you have to be more and more creative, right? And you have to move closer together. So I guess we've come to the end of our talk. We have a couple of minutes left, I get the sign. Are there any questions? No questions. There's one question. Do you want my mic?
Hello, Maximilian. I think that's not something we touched on, but like putting the creative guys and the media guys together in agency, because we saw many huge groups, huge networks of agencies. Is there a given structure that makes it easier or harder at some point of time?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by a given structure, but I think this is has a lot to do with being human and not with being structured or have a process for this. I think what you do have to do is be open-minded and talk to each other, because this is like communication is the first step to do actual good communication in the long run. So I think, I don't know if this answers your question, but like we don't have processes in place. It's just like, it's literally on the coffee machine, talk to the other guy. And like this is the first step of getting into a conversation and making great work together.
In order to make that happen, you need to be at the office, right? That's another topic we could talk a lot about, home office and the impact on creativity and all of that. But I guess we'll come a little bit to the end now. Thank you very, very much for sharing a little bit.
Thank you, guys.
Your view as somebody, how do you call it, the glue, the sticky stuff between the both worlds, the both forces. And thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, guys.